JT Crowley is Talking Books. On this show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world.
Hello, I'm JT Crowley. I'm the host of Talking Books, show on webtalkradio.net. And today I'm super delighted to have a New Zealand author, that is Natasha Burrell. She's from the Canterbury Plains on South Island in New Zealand. And she's joining me to talk about her children's book, St. John the Ambulance Cat. It's a book which is based on a true story. So let's ask Natasha to join me so that we can find out a little bit about herself and this wonderful book of hers. Natasha, would you care to come and join me on the show?
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm really good today. I've had a really long walk after my lunch. Because yes, for you in New Zealand, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning, but for me, it's 10 o'clock at night. Wonderful, isn't it? So, Natasha, before we have a little look at your book, would you care to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, and why you wrote the book? Because I'm always a great believer that a book has two stories to it. One, the story itself, and two, the story behind the story. Why it got written. So who are you? Why this book?
Hey, I after school I trained as a veterinarian at Massey University in Palmerston North, and I worked as a vet for 6 years, and this book was based on my favourite case from when I was a veterinarian. So it's kind of probably around about 2010 this actually happened. But I have 3 school-age children, and my youngest daughter is 8. And I was asked to give a talk to her class about being a vet last year. And part of that, I decided to tell the story of the cat that we called St. John. And the kids just really seemed to enjoy his story. They asked wonderful questions. And I kind of thought it would make a good book. Like, it's quite an unusual story from the point of view of what happened to the cat. And, yeah, just happy ending as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and the cat's called St. John, everybody, because it's based around the St. John ambulance service, which operates both here in the United Kingdom and in New Zealand. So because, well, there's a paramedic involved, and that's why the cat is called St. John's. That's the right way he got his name. And the story is based around where this city, which is the Scottish city actually in New Zealand, it's known for that, it's Scottish heritage, Dunedin, right down towards the bottom of New Zealand. And when you go there, it's a beautiful, beautiful city. And you can actually go and see, because I've been there, and you can get a trip out and see, if you're lucky, the albatross. What a magnificent bird. So there you go. Dunedin, the Canterbury Plains, where Natasha lives. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. You've got the Southern Alps that are the backbone of the South Island of New Zealand that dominates the whole landscape there. And then the beautiful plains, the flat plains. On the west coast of New Zealand, you can get 7 meters of rain, everybody. But on the Canterbury Plains, on the other side of the Alps, maybe a few inches. And it's the farmlands there. And this is where we find Natasha Burrell, everybody. Now, Natasha, this true story. I understand it says the opening scenes around the accident were based on, as I already hinted at, in an incident around Dunedin City. In around about, was it the early 2000s, 2010, something like that? And as a vet, you must have had many situations presented to you. So why did you choose this particular story? I know the kids enjoyed it, but Why the cat? You know, why not a rabbit? Why not a dog? Why not any other domestic animal that you would treat?
Just because it was memorable to me in that it's the only animal patient I've ever had arrive at the clinic in the middle of the night in a human ambulance with a paramedic, and it stuck in my head as the paramedics had, treated him so well. He'd had oxygen, he was all wrapped up, he was, getting the 5-star paramedic treatment. And it also stuck in my mind as he was just a lovely cat. He was a real smoochy, friendly, cooperative patient. And even though we couldn't find the owner, everyone at the clinic was so committed to giving this cat another chance. I mean, he had a pretty serious injury. And I think also the fact that the paramedic took him home, that we know he had a wonderful life after everything he went through, and just the chances of it happening the way it did, and was quite unusual.
So I suspect that in the story, you are the vet who got woken up in the middle of the night because you were on call duty that night.
Yes, yes.
I bet you were delighted to get that call, weren't you?
Oh, it's always a bit worrying when you get those middle of the night ones because it's going to be serious. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so when you look at the book, everybody, there is a picture in there. Yes, it starts off, with the cat on the side of the road, and then the ambulance and the paramedic there, and the cat getting a wonderful treatment and being looked after by the paramedic who makes the call. And there's a picture here of a lady in bed with a mobile phone beside her. That's the vet, and that was Natasha. Mm. Wouldn't you all love a phone call in the middle of the night to say, right, you're on duty tonight, off you go, get up and sort this out.
Yes.
Now, Natasha, your book is aimed at 5 to 7-year-olds, and I believe the aim is to show young minds, kindness, compassion towards animals in distressing situations, because animals are important to you. They're your life, they're your love, and that's why you became a veterinary surgeon. Would it be, a fair assumption, if I said, something this is very close to your heart, and I think you needed to tell a story to the kids about giving them what goes on. I'm right, aren't I?
Yes, I think I wanted to try and fire their imaginations with the medical side slightly as well. Like that's why the X-rays, I tried to make them slightly realistic, because I think, like, unfortunately, these things happen, but it was very hard to write a children's book where you're actually starting by running over a cat in a way that's realistic but not oh, I just wanted it to be a story that simple story that they could follow along and just see what stages, goes through with the treatment for an injury. And yeah, I wanted to be realistic, but still try and aim it at a child's level of understanding.
I think you did a good job there, because I love the pictures here I'm looking at, and poor St. John the cat's getting the needle in here, ready for its op. Poor cat.
Mm.
And he's looking at the vet going, good luck getting that needle in me. And then you've got the pictures, of the X-rays. And this is you trying to show the young kids, this is what goes on. This is life, isn't
Mm.
it?
Yeah. Yes, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I some things you just can't sugarcoat, animals have accidents, these things do happen, but um you can still get a happy ending out of something, something serious. And um
So I think, when I look at the picture of the vet in the bed, um, with the phone beside them, that really is a veterinary surgeon's life because it's not a job, it's a way of life. And this is what you're doing in a phenomenal way, telling the kids, if you want to follow this life, you've got to work hard, but there are going to be an awful lot of unsociable hours.
yes, yes. Most it depends, like in New Zealand where you live, how often you're on call, but certainly, there's weekends you will be on call and weeknights and things. And um, I always found it quite stressful that the total unknown of what you're going to get called about, like there's certainly a variety of strange middle of the night calls you can get from people, but yeah, but it is stressful and it's definitely not an easy job, but it can be a very rewarding one as well.
Yeah, I like the illustrations here. Did you like the illustrations that's been done for the book? Did you work with the people?
Yes, I did. It's sorry, I just missed that, John.
Did you work with the people, to put the illustrations together?
Um, with Ex Libris, they just asked me to write a description to go with each of the illustration I wanted for each line of text.
Hmm.
And when the illustrations came back, I was really, really quite happy. They really did capture what I was trying to show. Yeah.
I think the illustrations are, they're wonderful. They're very simple. They're very plain. They're not brightly colored in because that's not the point. They're very
Mm.
simplistic, but each illustration is telling the story, which Natasha has written. So the picture is matching up with the words. Um, the bit is a pin was put into the bone to hold it together and a big bandage applied. And then you've got poor old St. John. Here he is. He's on the operation table and he's got a red bandage around his leg. But that's the story, isn't it? That's the story of a veterinary surgeon.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm intrigued. If one of your children came to you and says, Mum, I would like to be a veterinary surgeon, what would you say to them?
I struggle with that one myself.
Hmm.
I'd certainly encourage them, but I want them to understand it's a job that can take a emotional toll, and it's not a 9 to 5 job. They need to be genuinely committed and realize they are going to work hard. you know.
Because you need to have, an understanding because a human being can answer you what's wrong with them. An animal can't. You've got to work it out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And different animals, different species, you can deal with quite a range of, you know, different anatomy and different medications, and yeah, it's
So, I mean, and, and also the book here, we've got the paramedic, who unfortunately she was on an emergency call out and she, ran into St. John. Um, did she take the cat in the end? I think you said she did.
she yes, she did. It was a bit more complicated than the story, because obviously they had to get an ambulance quickly to the human patient. So another ambulance was diverted straight to the human patient. Um, and then St. John actually went back to the hospital, got transferred to another ambulance, and came out to the vet clinic. But the paramedic that was driving the ambulance came into the clinic the next day and asked how he was. And because we couldn't find an owner, you've obviously got rules with the RSP or the SPCA in New Zealand, and but she offered to pay for his treatment, and after he'd recovered enough, she actually took him home, and he lived with her for quite a few years. Apparently, I talked to the paramedic recently. Apparently, he still had a bit of a limp. He wasn't ever 100%, but she changed his name to Ollie. So,
Changed his name to what?
Ollie.
Ah.
Because I think because she worked for St. John's, she didn't want her cat to be associated with where she worked.
So that's
we just called him that at the clinic. Yeah, I think it was the nurses that started calling him St. John. So, yeah.
it's big, and it's also it's story. You're telling kids that when you take on an animal like a dog or a cat or something, particularly a dog, they're not a cuddly puppy. They are something they are there for life, and you've got to consider that. And they will take up a fair, chunk of your time, and you've got to be prepared to do that. And, like the vet, you've got to understand, yes, this is a cat that's on the table, this is a dog, this and that, but it's somebody's cat, it's somebody's dog, it's alive, and you've got to respect and you've got to be responsible for that, haven't you?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Mm. And with St. John, like for starters, we didn't know how old he was. We didn't know what his history was. It was just, yeah, you have to sort of, well, take him as he was, basically. It was a big commitment for her to agree to that, not knowing, how old he was or anything,
Well, yeah, I don't know. What you suppose you could have looked at his teeth or looked at a few things and you'd have worked out. You would have guessed a reasonable age, wouldn't you?
You could have done a best guess, yeah. We thought he was a youngish cat, but that was the best we could do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when I looked at you put on there on the post, looking for the owner, nobody found him. The paramedic's doing that. I think this is a nice story for, yes, a young child of 5 to 7 to read on their own, depending what they're reading, but it is. But also it's a little, might be a nice little story for a grandparent, to sit with their grandchild.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think, well, when I read to my daughter's class, like a lot of the kids started to tell me their own stories of their animals if they'd been to the vet and what had been wrong with them. And I think I think grandparents would be the same. You can relate to things that you've been through with your animals in the past. And yeah.
Yeah. But it's a small book, everybody. But it's wonderfully illustrated. And the story, yeah, it's coming from a different aspect. But that's what Natasha wanted to do. This is the story of an incident that happened to a cat, but she's put a spin on it from a veterinary surgeon's point of view. What happens? That's the story, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm intrigued now here. So if you were standing in the middle of a group of children and they asked you, you've got your book in your hand, and they asked you, what's your book about? How would you answer it?
It's a true story. So I'd tell them it's about a cat's veterinary tale, basically. His treatment through coming into the vet clinic to when he found a home. And it's sort of a glimpse into what a veterinary case may be like.
I think that's a wonderful description. And I think you've put it beautifully for kids to understand. And you never know, you just might get one of those young children becoming a veterinary surgeon and taking on the responsibility.
I think lots of children say they want to when they're about 5, don't they? And then a lot of children seem to go through that stage of I want to be a vet. So hopefully some of them are inspired to keep going down that track.
Until they find out, yes, that, or when they actually have to do to become a vet, you've got to have more qualifications than a GP, than a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
I do. Because I know some of these vets who do these horses, because, in New Zealand, I think it's around the Hamilton, Cambridge area, there's the horse area. And some of those horses are worth an awful lot of money. And you as the vet have got to get this surgery right.
Yes.
And, and you've also got to understand if you call out to a farm, to a cow or to, an animal, that's that farmer's livelihood as well. And sometimes you have got to say to those people, this is not going to end well. But bounce it off with the joy when you're there at 4 o'clock in the morning, delivering a calf and saying there's new life.
Yes. Yeah. There's certainly many different, paths you can take in the veterinary area. And, it's like any job, isn't it? You have, really bad days, but then you have some good days too. So.
Yes. And as you said, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's a way of life. So do you intend to write some more books? Have you got some more characters, some more little animals that you want to tell a story about?
Yes, I've got a wee list of characters I would like to write some books about. I'm working on a second book at the moment called Two Pesky Pigs, which I've written the story, but we're just getting started on the illustrations at the moment. That's also another story I've adapted from 2 real life cases and sort of put together. So it's not quite based on a true story in the way St. John was, but it was more a funny case this time rather than a serious case.
Because I think it's fair enough. As when we were off screen, I said to you, the vet also needs the veterinary team around them, the nurses, the practitioners, the staff at the surgery. They're just as important in being involved, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. For this particular cat, we needed everybody at the clinic on board to make it possible to treat him even. There was a lot of the nurses and I spent a bit of time trying to convince, various people that this cat deserves a chance, even though he's a stray with a very bad injury, that
Mm.
we want to save him. And the nurses, work extremely hard as well on all
Mm.
these animals, and they're just as invested as, like it was a real team effort with St. John. And you just get some cases that just for some reason
They get you in the heart.
they get you in the heart. You tug on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
heartstrings cases. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. So do you envisage yourself, being a children's author? Or would you ever consider writing other styles of books?
Um, it was just like this obviously St. John was more sort of an accidental book, I suppose you could say,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But I do have some more stories to tell, but I don't have any um background in writing. Like it's just,
Yeah.
there's no training there or nothing. So I don't even think I could really say an author as such. But I'm very busy with my kids and my lifestyle block.
Mm.
I would like to go back to vetting one day when the kids are a bit older. Um, I'm a solo mum. My partner passed away, so life's pretty busy. So we'll just see how the book goes, and yeah, go from there. But there's definitely a few stories I would like still to tell.
Excellent. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. Natasha, where can people get your book from?
Exlibris.com. You can order through there, and I have got a website as well.
Yeah, the website is on the written instruction, everybody. You can find it there.
Yes, yeah.
And of course, Amazon.
And that's yes.
So I just want to say, Natasha, it's been wonderful chatting to you both on and off screen about your amazing book, St. John, the Ambulance Cat. The book, which is for kids, children, with a spin on what's the veterinary surgeon, side of things. And just to give an insight to young minds, what it could be like. But bear in mind, if you want to be a veterinary surgeon, it's not a 9 to 5 job. It's a way of life. You have to have a love of animals and a respect for animals and have kindness and compassion towards them. Which leads me to say, Natasha Burrell, thank you very much for joining on my show today. It's been a wonderful privilege chatting to you 12,000 miles away down in the South Island of New Zealand on the Canterbury Plains.
Thank you very much, John.
It's a huge pleasure. Thank you, Natasha. There you go, everyone. A little kid's book. I'm Jyoti Crowley. Thanks for listening, wherever you're in the world. Until next time, stay safe.